Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin. I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Yes, today we are going to have a jam-packed and fun-filled show, as Lily Tomlin would say. We have two guests today. The first is Daryl Rogers from the Alliance for Natural Health, and we'll be speaking about this most important subject we've been talking about for the past few weeks on A Better World, and I know many other hosts have been talking about it as well, because it's that vitally important. First of all, just to let you know, you can watch our TV show every Tuesday night through our website at www.abetterworld.net. Please make a point of noting that. 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or it can be watched on Manhattan Cable TV if you're in New York City, and just go to that website and all the information will be there. And join our newsletter if you haven't already. Now we are going to, as soon as we get hold of our guest, dive in. For the second half of today's show, we will have the founder of We the World, Rick Ulfik, who is its founder, its coordinator, and is doing some excellent work in promoting activism on many different levels in the New York area and globally. And we'll be speaking about the 11 days of global unity, which we are absolutely in the middle of now. Rick and I know each other from the United Nations from 15 or 16 years ago when we worked on a project involving Mahatma Gandhi and honoring him and Martin Luther King in something called the Season for Nonviolence. But now we'll get back to that, of course, for the second half of the show. But for the first half, it is this riveting, important, very important area of what the FDA, yes, you got it, the FDA are up to. Even with their short shirt sleeves, they've got something up them. And it's not good for people who are seeking to take care of their own health their way. It threatens our ability to have access to our choice of nutritional supplements, and it's actually also challenging our rights altogether as people living in a country supposedly run by a constitution. So on that note, we have invited one of the leading organizations of this fight against the FDA, and even more so for our rights, the Alliance for Natural Health, and one of its spokespeople, Daryl Rogers. Are you on the line? Absolutely, Daryl. So good to have you on. Let's just dig right into this salient subject here. Could you, even though we have covered this before, I think it's important for possibly new listeners or for people to review the essence of the issue. Is that so? That's interesting. So all the various subjects that have our rankles up in this country, the banking system and mortgages and subprime issues, etc., the issue of nutritional supplements has been right next to, or even more popular than, the Vietnam War itself. Mm-hmm. I think they're drugged, Daryl. I think they're drugged. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that approval process consist of, Daryl? Mm-hmm. Mm. At least. That's just since the legislation. Activity. Of course. Right. And what has been the outcry to date, and what is the point of limitation after which our voice won't be heard? Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up. My question is, in a court of law, it sounds like they have stretched it like, silly putty to its furthest extent, that it's actually gone beyond the spirit and the letter of the legislation of Deshaies itself. What would what would actually happen in a court of law if the FDA were to be sued? Yes. Excellent. When you look over the land, so to speak, Daryl, and you know the kind of responses that you get on varying issues regarding the FDA and all the work of the Alliance for Natural Health, what seems to be the response among people to this particular issue? Yes, well put. Yes. Yeah. Oh, they just have to look at Big Pharma. They can go to Gardasil to start with, and the rest of the vaccinations. Besides good food, by the way, that is. Besides good food, right? Yes. Wow. Yes. 700, including actual fatalities. Yes. 'Excellent, excellent. But it's interesting when you look at it from this larger perspective, just where the dangers really are. Now, another question, Daryl. Is there some kind of punitive action that the Congress could take or the American people could take toward the FDA for submitting frivolous claims and frivolous actions, wasting our tax money with defending the pharmaceutical industry against the American people? Because I think that a case could be made by even a rather average lawyer because the evidence is so ample. Yes. I mean, they're armed, Daryl. Why are they armed? Yes. Yes. Exactly. Did you see that email I sent you about that town in Maine that is passing its own regulations, which is going to completely uh, divest from the FDA's rulings on these matters regarding raw milk and its sale? Mm. In other words, don't drink it while you're crossing the border. Don't tell me. Oh, oh my God. It was a sting operation. It was a sting operation. Yes. Oh, I tell you. So when I say frivolous, you see, the courts only have a certain amount of room for already oftentimes ridiculous lawsuits. And when they hit the tone of frivolous, it's actually such a serious matter that the plaintiff receives what are called trebled damages for the complaint if the court rules in his favor. Meaning, it's not considered light at all, but rather truly wasting the time and the energy of the court system. And so that's why you see, just reducing a budget of even by $500 million, it's the same as in the banking industry. It's not considered criminal, and yet it needs to be criminalized, because what they're doing is actually criminal against the American people. And I want to know if there's anyone at the Alliance for Natural Health or any other organization that you know, these wonderful grassroots organizations that are thinking a little bit like this. You see, we are the ones always, Daryl, as you so well know, on the defensive. We're always in a reactive position, like, oh no, the big bad wolf is coming to do this again. And then we have to muster our forces again and go after them again. It's the same old, same old. However, I'm suggesting here that if we had a proactive, offensive, and I mean being offensive, to stop them in their tracks from this kind of continued behavior of supporting Big Pharma against, literally against the American people, I think we'd have a different future. I'd like to hear your comments. Yes. 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 Excellent. Mm-hmm. That is excellent. That is excellent. It's very obvious that, we've got at least two major issues at hand. One, of course, is the content of what are they up to again, and what are the vagaries being imposed upon us if they can get their way, in the dark of night again. And there's the very structure of how the government works, i.e., their ability to have authority in areas where we don't believe they actually have authority. And since we're the ones who actually assign authority, how can we shift that distribution of authority? Right. Who would have ever thought that we would have to ask the question? Yes. Yes. Apparently not. Yes. Now, I believe so. That's really where it matters. Think, act locally, think universally is the way I like to put it. Now, is the A&H actually in a lawsuit with the FDA on this subject? Mm-hmm. They're banning science now. Yes. Fabulous. How many cases do you have? How many lawsuits do you happen to know that you have pending against the FDA at this very moment in time? Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. No, it's just interesting because this information doesn't get to people. How many organizations are suing the FDA as just one agency of many that deserve to be sued at any given moment in time? Most people don't have a clue, Daryl, that there are organizations that are doing such excellent grassroots work like you are doing, and that the FDA is being considered unlawful in so many of these cases. And I'll just say in closing, one last thing. I just honor the work that you and the organization, the Alliance for Natural Health, is doing. And I would just like to add this one thing, reiterating the point that until some of their actions are considered criminal in nature, you're going to get a repeat of the same thing. They're always looking for a way around the law, and the fact that it took them 17 years to put together these guidelines is just a case in point. Furtively, in the middle of the night, they've got their pencils out and their pens, and they're writing things to try to subvert existing law. And there should be something that actually criminalizes that action. Okay. Exactly. Yes. Yes. There we go. Hallelujah. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Daryl Rogers, for your good work and for the agency. Give your website one more time for people so they can get into action both by writing and by phone calling. Wonderful. Thanks again for your contribution. Okay. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you jotted down that email address or that website, or go to ours. All of that information is there at www.abetterworld.net. If you haven't yet become part of our family, A Better World family, please do go to that same website under newsletter and join us, or forward our newsletters to others, because we're growing like mad, seeking to have as much influence in this world as we possibly can in order to, well, you got it, create a better world. And we need everybody for it. And on that note, that is a perfect segue to introducing to you my dear colleague and friend Rick Ulfik, who is the founder of We the World. I told you a little bit about him before. He's a very interesting man who's got a varied background in both saving the world, turning it around, transforming it in the domains of social awareness and environmental awareness and humanitarian awareness. In fact, we met at the United Nations, God almighty, over 15, 16 years ago.
That was, is this on?
Yes.
Hi,
welcome,
Mitch.
Rick.
Yes,
great
hi.
to have you.
It's great to be on the show with you. This is fabulous.
Yes.
And what you're doing is great, creating a better world through independent media, which is so important these days. It always has been, but even now it's so important.
Yeah, with such a, thank you so much, Rick. There's such a shutdown in commercial media of anything that's important. Oh, God, thank God for Gary Null and Progressive Radio Network and Pacifica Radio and
Exactly.
Free Speech TV, etc.
Right. So I think we met at the meetings for the Season for Nonviolence.
Correct. Task Force.
The task force, 1998, I believe.
98? It was
Yes.
a little before that, I think.
Well, it was
97.
1998 was the very opening. I think we started
Yes.
meeting in 97.
That's
but
what it was.
It was a confluence of the 50th memorial for Gandhi and the 30th memorial for MLK.
Exactly.
From January 28th to April 4th.
Yes.
And they called that span of time the Season for Nonviolence.
Exactly, and we had such a good time. And
Oh, yeah.
you're the musician, but I wrote the lyrics to a song, "Let's Make World Peace," if you remember. And Marion Monroe sang it at St.
Right.
Bart's. That was our
Right.
way of doing it. And
Exactly.
we just had a very special time. And interestingly, this group of people continues to this day, 17, 16 years later,
Exactly.
doing what we were doing then. We were probably
Right.
born doing it, Rick. Doing what we can to pioneer and champion that, it's so simple. It's like humane values,
Exactly.
environmentally awareness,
Right.
being in touch with Mother Earth and understanding this notion I keep developing called sacred stewardship.
Right.
It's not difficult.
Yeah. It's not
seems
rocket
like
science.
Right, it's not rocket science. It's like, be good to your neighbor. They'll then be good to you. Pick up the
Exactly.
litter. I love that book, I Learned Everything I Need to Know in Kindergarten.
Right.
I just love that. Well,
Exactly.
talking about picking up the litter and everything else, you with We the World and your other sister organization, We, is
Right.
involved in some very exciting material. Please tell us a little bit about the organization, and then
Sure.
come in, if you would, to the 11 Days of Global Unity.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Thanks. So basically, for over 10 years, in fact, it's since 1998, We the World, I founded We the World in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And for all this time, we've been connecting socially conscious organizations, businesses, and of course individuals around the world to amplify their efforts and generate public awareness and action. So we've already impacted the lives of close to 5 million people since that time, which is amazing. And we're now reaching, with our partners and all the work that we're doing, we're reaching about 850,000 people a year now, which is really great.
Fabulous. It's
Yeah,
fabulous.
it's been
And
growing.
what is the work that We the World? I've
Yes.
always wanted to know, because I
Yeah.
see you almost everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's like it's a very interesting sort of expandable site and organization.
Right.
And when you say you're connecting social organizations
Right.
with people and socially conscious businesses,
Yes.
what's an example of that?
Well, the biggest example is the 11 Days of Global Unity, which we're about to talk about. One thing I could mention is that in 2010 we started the We campaign, and so that sort of explains the relationship with We the World, which is the 501c3 organization that was founded in 1998. And then in 2010 we decided to kind of crystallize and simplify the message, because it's really about making that shift in consciousness from I to we in our culture and at all levels of our society. So we are really asking people, if they're just individuals themselves, or if they are members of an organization, or leaders of organizations, or leaders of businesses, corporations, institutions, governments, politicians, to please consider the common good before whatever actions you want to take, you know.
Oh.
So that's...
And are they? And what is your measure of how they're listening? Number one, who's listening,
Right.
and are you getting feedback?
Oh yeah. Well, I could say that the place to go for this conversation is we.net. That's when we launched the We campaign. We were very lucky, and of course it took a few months and negotiations and money to get that. It's a really
That
special
domain?
website, we.net.
Yes.
So that's where the
fabulous.
action is, and we're expanding that as we speak to become a global platform for social change. And we've been expanding our partner base with the We campaign, so that includes pretty much all of the major movements on the planet. And that kind of leads me to why we're doing this. Because, you know, for me, there are several compelling reasons. You know, just look at the United States alone. We have a situation where 1 out of 5 children are going to bed hungry in the United States of America, at the same time that half or more than Congress is still interested in giving tax breaks and tax loopholes
For private jets.
to the millionaires and the billionaires of our country. We recently had some new, updates about poverty in this country.
Yes.
And it's a story that we all know. You know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and it's all there in black and white, literally.
Yes.
And so that's
More
one.
starkly than perhaps ever.
Yeah, exactly. We're also in a situation where, despite wars for oil and coal mining disasters, the BP disaster, mountaintop removal, all of these things are happening. Oh, and
Fracking.
65,000 people a year are dying because of respiratory ailments, because of pollution, air
Bad
pollution.
air.
Yeah, I mean, people get
Despite
focused.
the Clean Air Act. Despite
Exactly.
the Clean Water Act.
Yeah.
And because of people like Cheney, when the Bush-Cheney regime was running,
Right.
they gave special dispensation to their buddies in the energy world to live outside of those very important acts that Congress passed
Right.
of clean water and air.
That's right.
And these folks are, like the big fracking companies, the natural gas companies, are exempt from laws that everyone else is subject to.
The Halliburton Clause, basically.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
So
please go on.
Yeah, so despite all of these problems and the health consequences, and everybody's aware of climate change with 900 or something like that tornadoes this year in this country alone. And,
That has nothing to do with it.
some people say. And, floods in Pakistan and Russia, the fires, and, and even in Texas.
Mississippi, Arkansas,
all
the
of these
floods.
things.
Yeah.
Right, so despite
It's
all
totally
of these things.
biblical.
Right. So even though we see these things with all of these areas of the environment that are at issue, we still do not have the political will to move to transition to renewable, non-polluting energy systems. And so, what is it going to take? I mean, this is why we're doing what we're doing, because okay, so there's one other area. So we have we have the climate change, we have poverty, and I didn't mention that, you know, half of our half of the world's population is living in poverty. It's like close to 3.5 billion people are living in poverty. They don't even have enough of the basics of shelter, food, water, never mind healthcare and civil rights.
U.S. poverty, by the way, Rick, as I know you know,
Yeah.
is wealthier than any other poverty on the planet.
Yes.
Because I know I have traveled to Peru and have been in Lima and Manila, and I had India, and I have seen a different definition of poverty when they really have a cardboard box. And that's it.
I know.
And
It's
they
incredible.
are panhandling on the street for the next meal, literally.
I
That's
know.
not our definition of poverty in this country.
No.
Sad as our situation here is in what's supposed to be the richest country in the world, no more. Give that myth up, you know, that story. But so it's tragic everywhere. I totally get it. But
Yes.
the degrees also should be recognized.
Exactly. I know. We think it's outrageous that the poverty line in the United States is a little over $22,000 a year for a family of four. I mean, it's hard to imagine living in that way. And yet that's so far beyond much of the world's poor.
Most of the world's poor, because I've studied the statistics, are more like living on $1.50 a day.
I know.
And it just went up from $1.25 because of inflation.
Oh, God. I know. So with
Poverty
that,
is a big piece of
poverty
the
is a
work.
big piece, the environment. And
Sure, we just had that. What you helped to sponsor this great fracking. What do we have? The
a
other
community
night?
open house.
And a community open house where
Right.
we had a really interesting group of people
I know.
gathered to talk about hydrofracking, which our audience here on A Better World has heard me speak of. We've had State Senator Tony Avella on and
Right.
many others
Yes. Exactly.
talking about this. And so that's one of the kinds of expressions of We the World and We.net. Is that correct?
Exactly. So we talked about poverty. We talked about the environment. Another, for me, the big three includes the fact that the world is as 15 children are dying around the world of hunger and preventable diseases. The world is spending $2 million during that same minute that those 15 children are dying on weapons and war. And so, you know, we are spending so much as a civilization on resolving conflicts through weapons and war, whereas we know that there are so many other ways to achieve reconciliation and understanding and peace. You know,
Where's
interfaith.
Marshall Rosenberg when you need
Right.
him?
Exactly. Well, he's there, and
I know.
there are millions of people there.
Very
So this
true.
is it. So what we're doing is we're saying that no single movement has yet been able to reverse those indicators about poverty, the environment, and war. So what we're looking to do, and what we're starting to do, starting a foundation to do, is to connect the movements, because they are interconnected already. But we're
Is
starting
A
to
Better
build.
World's part of your movement?
Certainly. Well, the independent media is certainly part of it. And I think you're up there on We.net, if I'm not mistaken.
If not, we should.
Yes,
we'll-
definitely. So what we're doing is creating ways for groups and coalitions and movements to work together to take collective action. And the 11 Days of Global Unity is one of those ways. We started that in 2004.
Mhm.
We had great support from Desmond Tutu, who made a video for us, and Jane Goodall
Fabulous.
was an honorary co-chair, along with Deepak Chopra and Robert Thurman and Marianne Williamson, and you know, all of the wonderful folks who were
That's excellent.
working on so many different levels.
Yes.
And we had cities participating, like about 125 cities, when we launched in 2004. Now it has gotten as large as over 700 associated events in over 60 countries annually. So
How
that's
do you
growing.
just logistically coordinate this?
Well, it's with our partners.
Yeah.
We've had incredible partners, and this year it even got bigger because this was such a special year. The 11 Days of Global Unity goes from September 11th through September 21st. September 11th, everyone knows, this is the 10th anniversary of the tragedy of September 11th, with all the consequences of that.
Our 9/11.
And of course there have been many 9/11s, which is kind of an interesting thing in itself. But let me finish the thought
Yes.
there. So 11 Days of Global Unity starts on September 11th, and it goes through September 21st, which is when the International Day of Peace is celebrated. And it's celebrated around the world with literally thousands of events and organizations taking part in that.
Yes.
And this year is special for that because it's the 30th anniversary of the UN resolution establishing an International Day of Peace. Back in 1981, it was established to be a day when ceasefires were encouraged in all the conflict areas on the planet. It wasn't always successful, but they did as much as they could. And that day was traditionally the first day of the UN General Assembly, the second Tuesday of September, when the General Assembly would meet. Right. And they would talk about which ceasefires had taken place during the year up to that point. The NGOs and nonprofits started to hear about this, and in the late 1990s, they really started to get involved with it as a rallying point, you know. But the problem was that the date was always moving, because it was the second Tuesday of September. That meant the date wasn't always the same.
It's like a lunar calendar.
Yeah, exactly. So they were really pushing to put it on a special day, on one day. And in fact, a guy named Jeremy Gilley created.
I was about to bring him up.
Yes,
because he made the film.
The film Peace One Day.
Exactly.
We
had him on Better World TV.
Exactly.
Back
there you
then.
go. See, you're right on the cutting edge of all
Well,
of
you
this.
know, it hurts.
The cutting edge hurts sometimes. I like that. You can get a little bleed there from being on the cutting edge.
Totally.
So
But
the UN.
rewarding.
What's that?
But rewarding.
But rewarding, right? So the UN started to get its act together to create a resolution to put it on, put the International Day of Peace on September 21st, but they didn't act fast enough. And so in 2001, before the resolution took effect, the official day of the International Day of Peace was September 11th, 2001. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Isn't that outrageous?
Outrageous.
Okay, so we looked at that.
God.
We the world.
There are no mistakes in this world.
I know.
Right.
Isn't that outrageous?
Oh, yeah.
So we looked at that, and the fact that the UN then made it official, so that from 2002 on, it was on September 21st. We looked at that and decided to kind of memorialize that and create a symbol, you know, mark that journey from September 11th to the 21st as a journey from fear to hope.
Oh,
And that was the birth of 11 Days of Global Unity. And that's how it all came to be. So so now it's even bigger because of the 30th anniversary of the International Day of Peace and the 10th anniversary.
I see.
So we have all
So
these
many more participants,
right,
because
and
of
it's
it.
at a higher level. So I just want to thank many of our partners now. We not only work with Jane Goodall and Deepak Chopra and all of those, but also this year we deepened the whole concept, working with the United Religions Initiative, especially with the team in North America, Sandy Weston and her whole team, and then in cooperation with Pathways to Peace and the World Peace Prayer Society, we created something called 11 Ways to Change the World. So it's now 11 Days of Global Unity, 11 Ways to Change the World. And we now have 11 themes to go with each of the 11 days. So the first theme, of course, for September 11th is unity. And then the second one is interdependence. And then we have environment on the third day, which is why we did that event on September 13th about fracking. Then we have economic justice, health, children and youth, women, human rights, freedom, disarmament, and peace for the International Day.
Nuclear disarmament?
Yes.
All disarmament?
It's all disarmament. However, I'm glad you mentioned that because one of our highlighted events, as we're taping, the day tomorrow, we're going to be doing a global teleconference about abolishing nuclear weapons, and it's going to be with Mairead Maguire, who's a Nobel Peace Laureate, and many others. Jonathan Granoff is going to be on the call from the Global Security Institute and many others. And we're doing this in partnership with the United Religions Initiative.
Excellent.
And of course, people, to sign up for that, it's free. They can go to we.net. Right on the homepage, you can see it says at the moral core of nuclear weapons, and you can register there. And if you're listening to this after September 20th.
There's a moral core to nuclear weapons?
Yes. Well, the moral core is the people who can end them forever.
Oh, yes, right. I was
this
reminded of Jackie Gleason's How to Core a Apple.
Right.
You know, I never thought, I mean, the use of the word morality and nuclear weapons is like an anachronism, or it's an oxymoron.
Exactly.
You know.
So after the fact, people can also go to we.net to listen to the archive of the call. And it's a unique kind of opportunity. It's not just people talking, but there will be a Q&A available too. I mean, we already have...
So it'll be interactive.
It's interactive. We already have over 100
Wonderful.
people signed up.
Wonderful.
And at a certain point, we'll ask for questions. And with our system, we're using the Maestro teleconferencing system, you know. People just press a button on their keypad, and it registers on the screen, and we can take their questions or their comments with the speakers. So we've had
fabulous work.
Well, thank you.
Really
So another partner in terms of unity, and we have Prepare New York, which is an amazing group. They have been doing 500 coffee hour conversations to increase interfaith understanding 10 years after 9/11 with specifically Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and many others. You know, we have EcoFest and the Vigil for International Peace and Ecology in the Central Park bandshell coming up on the 25th.
You can't name everything you're
I know.
Don't even try.
Right.
It's not possible.
Right. But at we.net,
It's
that's where you can
that
see
you
everything.
are you're really also on the cutting edge with social change and bringing awareness to people worldwide of these issues. Honestly, I wanted to get into this with you because people can go to your website and see a lot of what it is you just shared with us. The issue for me, and I'd just like to hear in our last minute or so what you have to say about this, is not the statistics. The statistics about there being 1 in 5 children in the United States that goes to bed hungry every night is staggering for people like you and me. But the politicians who have the power to actually do something and legislate, they go glossy-eyed. They don't get it. They glaze over. They've heard statistics there and at the UN. I see the same thing so many times. It puts them to sleep. It's like a sleeping pill.
Right.
It doesn't have the desired effect. We've lost our attention span in this world, as we both know, and imagery seems to be the thing as well as a well-wrought joke. And I'm just wondering, because you're a musician, you're an artist, as well as a social activist par excellence, what is it, do you think, that can really move people off the dime?
The politicians. is what you mean. I
Yes.
think the people in power.
People who
It's-
can really
It's right.
develop the political and therefore economic will to make these changes.
I know. So we have politicians, we have corporate CEOs, we have heads of the major mainstream corporate media. They are the ones who hold the power in our culture. What we're doing, and what I think the goal is to create a movement that's been larger than any signal movement has been so far. Paul Ray, who wrote The Cultural Creatives, estimates that there are as many as 60 million people in the United States alone, and many more
That was
around.
15 years ago.
Yeah, well, he was estimating at that point 40 to 50. Now he's saying it's up to 60, and those are people who share.
I think that's modest.
It's modest, but it's well, you can see those are the people who tend to vote Democratic every year and all that. So they are the people who share values of social justice, peace, environmental stewardship, holistic health and sustainability and spirituality, indigenous wisdom and global consciousness. Now this is all under the category of what I call we consciousness. And so Paul Ray, when he joined our advisory board, he was excited about how we can connect them so they can be visible to each other and begin to act collectively, economically, culturally, and politically. That's how I think we can do it.
All right. I'll accept that provisionally. Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate your good work. We.net is the website, so folks, go visit. Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
I'm so glad. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. Visit us at our website at www.abetterworld.net. You too will be on the cutting edge. And join us Tuesday night to hear and watch our television show. And I'll see you all next week.
Well, that was fun.